cards just ain't right. I'm so salty, must not give in to rage. And I'm wondering what those rollers will say. Scarves to the left of me, cheaters to the right. Here I am, gonna roll a derby tonight. Gonna roll a derby tonight. Gonna roll a derby tonight.
G'day and welcome to another episode of Hidden City Roller Derby. I'm your host Simcof and joined as always by this motley crew of rollers. How are your team? I hear that I see Bert's in the room.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Remedy, aka Glen.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
And the wild man from the west, Mr. Butters.
Hey guys.
Well, it's been a big week again in L5R. There's been an incredible amount of news that has happened. We've seen new cards, new previews, changes to the organisational play kit. We've seen the very important Australian Hot Pick Champion. The 5th Australian Hot Pick Champion has been crowned. We'll get into that later on. We've seen the mid-season drops for the Global Discord League. It's been just a crazy, crazy, crazy week. Most importantly, the Emperor has appeared.
Hubba, hubba, hubba.
I
can't believe this dude costs 6 and is dash and people are still hyped.
Mate,
amazing.
His abilities are savage.
Right, so let's start off with all of the news items, and Hantei sounds like a great place to start. Dash 6 cost abilities better be pretty good, right?
Well, you can't drag him into any conflicts. He's immune to all dueling. Check that out. Well, except Toreadory-Jiai. Sorry, my mistake.
Oh man, he owns it at Toreadory-Jiai. He's got 6 glory. That's amazing.
You have to give him Shigenja with Soshi.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So you get a couple in with there's your cheese
Jank
combo
City,
right there.
Jank City, 6 glory.
That's Bert approved. So
don't you fucking dare put my name on that.
Mate, you're the innovator. You've incepted that combo.
There's a scorpion deck coming up called Bert approved.
Jeez, you really got to be careful what you put out into the world these days, you know. No one's going to take that literally.
How's them tattoos going, Bert?
Right, so this guy has 2 abilities. Well, he's got a whole bunch of abilities. He's got like traits. He's mythic. Like he's the first mythic character. Do you expect to see more mythic characters?
Fulang.
Yeah,
what about if they bring out some of the dragons, like the shadow dragons and the elemental dragons? They might be mythic.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was a version of Togashi Yukuni that popped up later on, a version 2 with a mythic trait once he does the big reveal.
Yeah, so he copies 2 abilities instead of 1 because he's already too weak.
All abilities. He may trigger all abilities on the table at will.
So he could be. So he's got like a redirection ability, and he also could just bow someone as an action, right?
Yeah, I mean the bowing is super strong, but that's an effect we see in other cards. It's the interrupt that I think is just really, really strong. It kind of acts a bit like a cancel in the sense that you're preventing some effect, but you can also use it beneficially. So, like a let go, for example, you can discard one of their attachments. Of course, your opponent's probably not going to play a let go while this guy's on the board, but yeah, the upside is higher than a cancel, but it is on the board, so it's face up. So it's a pretty interesting card.
I
Do you think we might see him?
The fact that it's telegraphed makes it stronger. I feel like your opponent's just not going to play stuff.
It's like a mega Kasada because you can pick and choose when you trigger it rather than it being.
So do you feel like there's a new crab deck in the making which cheats out Hantei and Kasada and just keeps them there?
How do you cheat out this boy?
Appealing. I guess there's a couple of ways. Appealing the fortunes.
The only way.
Well, I mean, you could use appealing the fortunes is the obvious way to do it, and you can start with that, so it's always available. Right? So it seems good. And then
I was thinking appealing to the fortunes plus good omen. Because you can't have attachments, so you can't reprieve him, but you can put fate on him.
You can good omens him. You can also not Vengeful Oathkeeper. Is that he's not Vengeful Oathkeeper? What's the name of that? The little douchebag from Crab who can sacrifice himself to add a fate onto characters.
Oh, Vanguard Warrior.
Yeah, Vanguard Warrior.
Stand your ground out of line.
You got Iron Mines. Iron Mines keep him around. So I feel like there could be a crab deck. Imagine if you've got like Kasada and Hantei out at the same time. Like that's that's a lot of that's a lot of things you have to do. There's a lot of tax there before you can actually start having successful actions.
When you think about it, this is kind of like a giant Kanjo district with an extra ability that costs a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you know what
absolutely.
would be actually kind of vile, I think, is you chuck him in Phoenix and you charge bird him in.
Yeah, I guess
Bird
when
goes
the
out,
charge bird
flip on the
dies, you
table.
could fetch.
Wait, is Fushisho? Does it say
Oh, is
any
it Phoenix
character
only?
equal or lower?
Phoenix. It's
No, I
Phoenix
think you
only.
can get any character.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, Phoenix. Okay. I'll shut up. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No. So appealing the fortune seems to be the best way of cheating this character out at the moment.
Yeah.
Or you
can't-
just buy him with your 10 Fate production stronghold.
Yeah, and you can't Miyako's undertaking.
Do what you can.
Yeah, so Shiro Shinyo. So it looks like there's a few different decks that could potentially use this
Do what
character.
you can do. You can just do with the classic pass turn 1, not interact with your opponent, and not get punished for it, because currently there's not enough cards to punish turn 1 pass. And then you
Well, I think if your opponent is Unicorn, there is. But yeah, I know what you mean in general.
and
That's
then
been the way.
you can play him turn 2. Hard cast.
Dude, do you know how sick this guy is against cavalry reserves? You go and get all those 0 drops. You're like, yeah, you could have a 0 drop.
Yeah, I think this Hantei guy is absolutely mental. He's amazing.
The problem is his downside is fucking savage. If he ever gets discarded, you're pretty much losing the game. I think if you've paid for him, right?
Yeah, and you can. I mean, the thing is as well. If you're running Satoshi can fetch Hantei as well. So you've got this kind of like train where you could build a deck that would consistently see Hantei. It's not like a dream card where you just hopefully you go through enough of your deck and you eventually see one. Like with Satoshi and a few other tricks and maybe walking away, you'll get to Hantei pretty quick. Like
There's
when
that
you need
new
her.
holding as well, isn't it? The fishes for
The
Imperial
Mia
cards?
library.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mia library. So there's lots of ways of making sure you actually see Hantei. So I guess the challenge is you need a shite load of fate, like just an absolute bucket load of fate to make this thing work.
Suppose if you have your Satoshis though, you've got a decent chance of milling for an extra copy as well. Just dump him for an extra fate. It's another way to keep him around without having to pay.
That is true. Yeah, you can discard him. So I think. Have you guys been thinking about what sort of decks are actually going to make use of this character? I mean, I think Crabs can keep him around the longest, but they do have a challenge getting the Imperial favor.
10 fate a turn, Imperial Unicorn. All over.
Imperial Unicorn. Are you, Glenn? You must be frothing at the mouth. You are a Imperial fanboy, and you must we're seeing all these Imperial cards.
Can I
Is
just
that
say
deck
this is
ready?
probably the most exciting news article from this pack? Like, Crab got maybe 1 or 2 cards, but this was just pure bliss for the Imperial player. Nearly every card just really excited me for what's to come.
Dude, I've just figured out Glen is our Shay. He's the nicest guy in the podcast, and he loves Imperial shit. And he loves
Nicest-
Jank.
I'm also more line friendly than you, mate. So got that going for me too.
That is true.
Dude, I bleed gold, bro.
I don't know. I reckon
don't,
if you took Glenn to Worlds, I'm pretty
shit
sure
gold.
he'd remember to put Keeper and his shits in his deck.
I think the Imperial
Yeah.
stuff
Man,
got a real
I'm-
boost with this pack. The Emperor alone, being able to, if you can cheat him out, I think he's incredible. And I think probably the best way is playing the fortunes with Talisman in Unicorn. Second best is probably trying it in Crab with the Iron Mine combo. I think, as Bert said, Good Omen's probably one way to try and gain extra utility from him. Or as Butters said, if you...
The big
What?
Sorry? challenge, though, I think. I was just thinking the biggest challenge with both those clans is totally agree. They're the best way to. If he didn't have the trait that says if your opponent has the Imperial favor, discard this character, they're the 2 easiest ways to get him out. But to actually keep him on the board, not only do you need all Crab's tricks, but you need to actually hold on to the favor. So I think that sometimes, I mean, you've got to plan his entry. Like you basically have to suckle at the teat of the Emperor
Well,
before the Emperor arrives.
He has 6 glory and can't enter conflicts. So the odds of him bowing are pretty slim.
So
And that 6 glory is going to hold you pretty.
So
pretty
Scorpion
firm.
can really screw with this dude, right? So Kiriko, that new poison that was revealed, means that as soon as Hantei tries to use any of his abilities, he gets bowed.
That's true, but like if you
Poison.
if you didn't pay 6 fate though for him, I think like I'm actually okay with that change. Like if they pay 1 to bow him, they're not using it to bow one of your other characters.
I think it has to be used in the safe deck, which is probably IMS Phoenix, because they have the most favor tricks. I think most other clans are going to struggle to consistently keep favor.
Scorpion have probably got the second best shot of being able to keep favor. Like they've got with Fawning Diplomat, and then they, and they can splash. If you're splashing let goes, you can just chuck in the old Ancient Masters as well, and you've got
Fawning doesn't actually help though, because if your opponent naturally wins the favor, Fawning triggers in Fate phase, and then he gets discarded in the.
So Fawning's a counter, but not a support.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess Sadako and Ancient Master, if you're splashing Dragon, but Sadako is a 3 fate 2 coster. So I think you've got a few ways of keeping it, but I do agree that the Phoenix old box seems to be the safest route.
Do you know what I really love about this card? It's that it's the first card in the game that is truly a hard control card, meaning your mid-rangey Dragon type decks just can't include him because they can't support him. But a very, very pointed control deck can play it. Unlike a Fate Worse Than Death, for example, where every fucking clan under the sun was splashing it because it was just so strong and so easy to play anyway. So I like that this guy is like, his niche is the hard control. Whether or not it's really, really good remains to be seen, but I like that it's a deck-defining card rather than something you can just chuck anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like any deck where you just put 1 or 2 of this fella in. More often, it might seem like a good idea. Just splash an Emperor. What's your splash, Emperor? His August Personage. But but it turns out if you want to bring Mythic to the table, you better have a deck that supports that, and probably an aggro deck or a mid-range deck that doesn't have the tools to really effectively make this guy work.
You just want to hope your opponent doesn't have the old Opium Wastrel as well. That's its kryptonite, isn't it?
Oh shit! Well, that actually is only to the end of the conflict.
It's the counter to Bert's, Phoenix Shigenja dual deck that he was building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like when you
we gotta stop this meme before it spreads, and I do not want people to play that.
It's this.
Please don't do that, please.
So do you want to just run through how you would construct this deck? So it's a Scorpion deck with IO. It's splashing Phoenix. Walk us through it.
Three Toreadory-Jiais, and that's so you can win a glory jewel that you should otherwise be able to win anyway, but you're putting in a 6 fate character just so you can auto win them. So it's a bully jewel rather than a jewel that you're winning anyway. So yeah.
No, I'm with you. We'll make it happen.
Solid.
For fuck's sake.
All right. Well, here's the challenge. Can the Emperor favor Lion? Is there a way of making this card work out of the Lion faction?
Nope.
Any possibility of thinking about it for a couple of seconds, or just blanket no?
No, he totally can. Appealing to the fortunes and stand your ground.
Yeah, there's 2 saves.
Stand your ground, good omen.
There
you go.
I just
don't
don't
get
see
targeted.
the benefit.
You don't see the benefit of Lion struggles for control. Like that redirect is super strong in Lion because they suffer there. What do they usually get?
So are you ever buying this guy though? Because if you're never buying him and you're relying solely on one province, it's just total jank. And I don't think Lion can support a 6-drop.
You can't spirit call him in, can you?
No, because you have to be able to participate in a conflict for Spirit Caller.
I think this guy's just he's maybe Crane, like favor control Crane, or definitely Phoenix. I think are the 2 that are going to make best use out of him because you just have to make sure that if an opponent has an Imperial favor, discard this character text never goes off if you're including him. That's my opinion.
Very true.
Are there any cards other than Scorpion that just straight up give you the favor though?
No, but
so.
I don't know. So not at the moment. I think eventually Crane will probably have some duel that lets him do that. But for the time being, no. Let's wait and see what happens in the Crane pack. But that seems, or maybe there'll be like a Lion clan if they win a conflict as a reaction, take the favor or something.
The other big card that got spoiled is this neutral event, Defend Your Honor.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Roll. Yeah, keeper roll only. Interrupt. When the effects of an opponent's event would initiate during a conflict, initiate a military duel against a character your opponent controls of his or her choice. And if your character is the duel's winner, you cancel the effects. That is the hotness.
It is really good. I think it'll be like an auto-include in any keeper. I mean, I think that card alone, for clans like Lion, Crab, Unicorn to a lesser degree, will sway them heavily towards keeper rolls over Seekers. I think it's too good to not.
Especially if your clan doesn't have native event hate.
Yeah, well, who does? It's only Scorpion Crane, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you've got hand to hand and this card, a Lion on their way to becoming playable yet, Bert, or are we still in the doldrums?
No, because I think most other clans can actually use this better, including Crane, because they have a stronghold that triggers off duels, and they actually have more military skill than Lion characters. So I think Crane and Crab will use this a lot better. I think Unicorn can use it pretty well. I mean, all Lions will probably play 3 of these if they're playing Keeper. But so I don't think it's like the card that elevates Lion, because other clans can use it even better. That's what I would say.
We've seen a fairly large chunk of the set now. It does feel like that Crab, who have already doing very well in this current meta, this feels like a card that could potentially push them to even the next tier from, potentially to God tier itself.
Yeah, because this card in combo with Watch Commander is fucking savage too, because it means that if they want to cancel your cancel or play another event, it's just costing them honor every time. It's super, super strong.
Right. Well, that's some of the new cards. There's a bunch of other cards you can go and check out as well, but that's probably some thoughts, our hot take on those. But there is a lot of other news that was kind of released at the same time. One of those things was about some changes to OP, aka organizational play or organized play, I think it's called. The way they're going to do price support. Glenn, did you have some details on that?
Yeah, so even though there's been 4 kits for L5R haven't come out yet, FFG has decided that in 2019 they're going to shift gears a bit with their organized play program. This is not only specific to Legend of the Five Rings, but also to their other card games as well as X-Wing. So I think essentially what their focus is changing to is the kits only cost about 10 to 15 Australian dollars. They support 3 months of play for up to 8 players, and there's an increased focus on casual play. So there's reward and incentive for just showing up and playing casual games rather than playing in super competitive tournaments or in the stronghold events that we've been running currently for the current kits. And so that's the change. So previously, for reference, the kits were costing stores in Australia between 200 and 250, and the smaller kits for other card games were costing about 40. So this is a dramatic reduction in cost for stores, and hopefully that translates into reduction in cost for players. To the point of even it's just participation rather than paying to play in tournaments.
You go. Right. Well, we do have some pretty big events coming up over this weekend as well, which we want to keep a look on. So I think that there's 2 Koteis. These are the first Koteis of the year. One's in Cork, and I think that's going to get some pretty big numbers. I think we'll probably see potentially north of 100 there. Not sure how many are going to come to Phoenix. I wouldn't be surprised if hopefully it'll be close to that number. But Phoenix, there was quite a few folk. Was there a Phoenix Kotei last year? Not sure.
There what?
Maybe not. I don't think there was.
I have no idea.
I've got a list up here and I can't see it on my list. So if it is, it's not on my list. So let's see. let's see. There wasn't one in Arizona, as far as I'm aware. So we'll see. But we do know that there is a fairly decent turnout plan there. I am aware of a bunch of folk that are heading up there. I think we're going to potentially get a stream at the Phoenix Cote. So that'll hopefully come out in a few days. So be tuned in for that. I think that should be a pretty exciting event. And Cork, I don't know the details there, but I remember the Dublin Cote last year did have some streaming facility. So those Irish folk are usually pretty good at sorting out some tech. So pretty excited to watch those. My hot tip is I think that Crab is going to take both. We're just going to wipe the floor. That's my perspective.
Bold prediction.
Bold prediction. What about you guys?
I think Unicorn are going to get pretty rough. I think they're going to come out and surprise people, and then they're going to dominate pretty consistently soon. Their power curve, particularly what's coming up with like Children of the Empire and stuff. I think.
Have Phoenix won an event yet? I think Phoenix might win.
Yeah, they have. They won an Elemental Championship a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think any of Phoenix, Dragon, Crab, Crane, Unicorn can win. I think Scorpion and Lion. I think Scorpion and Lion probably can't win, but the rest probably can. And yeah, I don't know. Anyone could win. I hope it's Unicorn or Phoenix or someone who hasn't won a lot.
So refreshing here. Like honestly, it just sounds so much better than last year, where there's probably two clans in the running.
It was almost entirely Crab and Scorpion last year. There's some dragons towards the end of the year that won big events, but basically it was just Crab and Scorpion. So now if you look at those first six Elemental Championships that we've got records for, we still haven't heard the results of the Shanghai event, but for the other six, there was two Crane are up in front in this current meta. They've won two. Unicorn have taken out one, as have Crab, Phoenix, and Dragon. So Scorpion not in sight, and neither Lion. So I think that's quite a variety of clans there. It's just two clans who aren't seeming to be able to put it together. And it is interesting to see Scorpion just not on the leaderboard anymore.
I think Crab is going to be so fucking strong coming Coat. I think they just got such a nice base to add on cards into, and like stuff like that keeper cancel. Oh man, I'm worried about Crab.
I think it's
the big thing I think is just the saves. The saves have just been proving to be too strong in L5R, in my opinion, for both not only Crab proper but also as a splash for Dragon.
Well, I think it just compounds that tower meta though, which has been a problem forever. But you've got like one of those new magistrates sort of chisels away at big people. They can't contribute. The Humble Magistrate, one of the new ones that was
Humble Magistrate.
4 pluses. Yeah. Like there's a few, and I think they're obviously working at it. But no, you're right. I think it's pretty impressive.
I do love the idea of those magistrates. Just have rules. They're like, this is the law that I'm enforcing.
Yeah, no, it's super good. They're good fun to play. Well, some of them are good fun to play. Others are just dead weight. But, for the most part, no, they're solid cards. But no, I think back on Crab, I think they just they have big people with good abilities, and they have so many saves. And I think when that restricted list changed recently, I think not moving Reprieve there was probably a mistake. I think that's the option between like having the Dynasty and being able to turn them over and just have holdings there is all well and good. And Crab, leverage holdings really strong, but having them extra saves also in your hand for whenever they don't pop up, I think is what tips them over the edge. It's too much.
I think that Neil asked Tyler on the interview with him, an idea that I've been a big fan of for a long time. He asked him if he would ever think about implementing it, and that is when you save a character, that all the attachments fall off, which I think is a fair way to implement saves. Like either you have that, or you go the Game of Thrones route and you have like kill cannot be saved card text, which is very, very strong in L5R. So, but he said he didn't want to do it because it added complexity to the game, which
makes sense.
Too far gone now, yeah. Like I get it, but I think that's the way to do it. Like putting some kill cannot be saved. I mean, all you do is reduce to 0. Like the Shoju Aramoro sort of abilities, where if they hit 0.
But like realistically, both of those characters aren't going to kill a meaningful tower right now. Like the people are going to play Finger of Jade, or they're just going to buff their guy to the point where they're untouchable.
You need to play more Make an Opening. That's what you need.
Right, I did notice we did have our first. We spoke last week about our first unicorn winner, Chris Hornsey, who won in London, the London event there with his Ninos, his Merman and Shrine Maiden that managed to outlast that field. It was a pretty decent sized field too. What did you guys think about that? Like unicorn actually now starting to actually pump up some wins.
I think it's fantastic. It's overdue. They suffered for a long time. They deserve a bit of a moment in the sun. As I said before, though, I think with stuff like Komoko coming out and the like, I think they are in high chance of getting out of control.
I personally love it because it's a deck that I want to be the top deck because it's so much fun to play and to play against, and it doesn't have shit like Restoration of Balance or fucking Tadaka that just turn off the game. So I think it's on the upper end of what fair is, and so I really, really like the deck, and I like that it's fast and puts pressure on. Huge fan, and I hope that that's the best deck going forward. I really hope it's the best deck.
So Chris has been our pioneer as far as unicorn wins go, which is fantastic. And Glenn, I think you caught up with him recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I interviewed him earlier this week. I think what you guys are saying about the deck is pretty accurate. Talking to him, and you guys will hear it soon, but I think it's just exciting to have a deck where you and your opponent know what your game plan is, and like Bert said, it is quite fair. You know that there's Cavalry reserves and Unleash the Djinn that you have to contend with, and it's really about you trying to dismantle those pieces while they try to put them together, and they put you on a clock to answer it unless you lose. He was saying that most games lasted until turn 2, sometimes turn 3, very rarely turn 4, which is a pretty dynamic shift, I think, to what we're used to playing here in Melbourne, at least.
Well, we will post Chris's deck in the notes for the podcast. You can just have a look in the notes there and click on it. And maybe now's a good time for us to listen to that interview. Glenn, our roving reporter, caught up with Chris, so let's hear what they had to say.
Hi, and welcome back to the Hantei Rollers. I'm Glen, and I have the pleasure today of having a recent Elemental Championship winner, Chris Hornsey, with me. Chris, how's it going?
Hi, Glen. Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. No worries. We thought, given that Unicorn hasn't had its day in the sun, so to speak, that we'd like to celebrate their recent victory at quite a big tournament over in Darksphere, so congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, you're right. It's been a bit rough for Unicorn so far, but yeah, hopefully things are going to take a turn for the better soon.
Yes, and so I guess to start off with, I just thought it'd be good to just gauge just what was your background with L5R before obviously this tournament and all that. Had you been playing since core, or how did you get into the game?
Well, so I actually played the old game, the old CCG from AEG back in the day for a bit. So I kind of dabbled a bit when I was a teenager, and then got back into it around the start of Emperor Edition, sort of until the end. And so, yeah, when they announced that FFG was going to buy the IP and start it up again, then yeah, as soon as it was launched, I was kind of back in there. So. Yeah.
And had you mainly played Unicorn since core set, or had you dabbled through different clans before coming to Unicorn?
So yeah, I played Unicorn in the old game, so that was very much kind of my clan. When the core set came out, and obviously trying to learn the game and everything, then I was definitely playing Unicorn to start with. But once we got a good few games in, and I thought I was getting the hang of the game, but still seemed to be having a pretty tough time actually getting anywhere. I decided to switch around a bit, so I went to the Kote in Cork last year, and I ended up playing Crab just because I didn't fancy my chances with the Unicorn there.
So you went from a super defensive clan to probably one of the most aggressive clans out there. So it's quite a shift back.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think Crab suited my playstyle at all. It was just sort of, at the time, I thought it was going to be a good deck.
Yeah. And so I guess you've then come and built this monster of a deck, this very aggressive deck. And I was wondering, how did you settle on this style of deck for Unicorn, given that there's been a few different approaches to the HMT Unicorn over the past 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question, actually. So, I mean, I've been kind of playing around with HMT kind of since it was released for Unicorn, and yeah, tried a few different things. Mostly trying Dragon Splash because I kind of assumed that would be best. And kind of the more games I played, the more I found that the shorter the game was, and the more I could take advantage of kind of the really explosive conflicts that you can get out, the better I seemed to be doing. So it kind of eventually went in kind of that direction with just as many conflict and military pumps as it could put in, basically.
And is this a list that you had been, filling around with for quite a few months, or is it something that you'd settled on quite recently, post-restricted lists, and kind of had just been refining over the past month or so?
Yeah, definitely post-restricted list. I think was when I really settled on it. So obviously, Against the Waves coming off the restricted list really opens that up, and with the number of Shigenja you ought to put in the deck naturally anyway, it seemed like a good fit. And I'd always really liked Pharaoh Ningyo. We have kind of a very consistent Phoenix player in our group here in Cambridge, and I was always jealous when he got to get those Ningyos down, so I kind of wanted to have a go myself.
Yeah, and I noticed, obviously, in your very detailed write-up, you discussed your decision to not run what was considered a very fundamental card for Unicorn for quite a while, which was Spyglass, and I thought you had a very interesting perspective on why that was. I was wondering if you could just go over that again here about why not run Spyglass in this style of deck, and how you found that kind of changed your approach to the game plan.
Yeah, sure. Again, good question. It's kind of it was a tough decision to come to, and kind of a non-intuitive one, I guess, because yeah, you're right, Spyglass is probably one of Unicorn's best cards. But kind of as I was playing with it, I found that there wasn't always a good fit with a character I wanted to put Spyglass on. And so a lot of the times when I go into turn one, then I just want to buy maybe just a Moto Youth or a Border Rider. And obviously they're both pretty terrible targets to put a Spyglass on, because they're just going to get assassinated, or maybe I just discard them to the Stronghold. And so turn one, it wasn't feeling particularly good for me, and then turn two is when I tended to buy a more expensive character and maybe put a Spyglass on. But the way the deck works is you don't always get that character in two conflicts turn two, so you don't always get both triggers of the Spyglass off there, and at that point you're having to wait until turn three until you get kind of your value back off the Spyglass. And I guess what I mean by that is, so if Spyglass costs you one Flate and a card to play, then you really need to be drawing at least two cards off it, basically, to kind of get back to where you started with it. So yeah, it just took a long time to get the kind of the value back off that, and I found that actually I'd have it in my opening hand, or I'd have it early on, and I just wouldn't want to play them.
Yeah, I guess two things off that. It feels like if you do manage to cut that card, it does open 3 precious slots to open up, some other options for your deck. Was there something that you just replaced it with, or did you just up the count on some of your other cards in the deck?
Yeah, you're right. That's a key point as well. There are lots of, quite nice toys to try and fit in the deck now. I guess if it got replaced by anything, then it was probably the Invocation of Ashes. Those are kind of the difficult cards to put in. But with Shahai and also with Against the Waves then coming into the deck, then they get better as well. And yeah, that just seemed like a more natural fit.
I guess my other consideration was, given the amount of cards that you seem to have in your deck that, lose you an honor, so Bonsai, Captive Audience, and Unleash the Djinn, I was wondering if you had any thoughts or if you had any testing against Dishonor decks or decks that would pressure your honor and try to out-control your early aggressive game plan. Had you had much experience against that, and did you have lines of play that you felt were strong enough to get through that hump?
Yeah, so I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I'm not quite sure. When you say a Dishonor deck here, there seem to be sort of two ways that can go. There's the very aggressive Dishonor deck, which seems to go, okay, turn one, I'm going to bid one, and then I'm just not going to leave my dial off one for the entire game, and slowly grind you down. And then there's kind of I don't know, what I view as sort of the standard Scorpion deck, which I think his name was Jake, who I played in the finals, was playing, which is kind of, gradually removes honor from the game and slowly takes it from you. So kind of the aggressive bid one style, I hadn't really had too much practice against. Sort of no one locally was playing that style of deck. So I guess I didn't play too much against that. The sort of the more standard Scorpion deck, then I've played a few games against that, and it's a bit of a matter of being careful, and sometimes as well, and definitely the finals games I played, you have to essentially pick a turn that you're going to win or you're going to lose on, and you say, okay, well, at the end of this turn, I have so many Dishonored characters leaving play, it's game over, so I've got to win this turn. And then you think about, well, how do I make sure, this turn that I don't, dishonor myself out through anything, and just kind of make sure it's okay through that. So that was kind of sort of how my finals game went. Was going into the final turn, I sort of decided that this was the turn where I was gonna end it, and I think I caused the spectators to laugh a little bit. So I sat there at the beginning of the turn. I think I was on about 2 honor or something, and I sort of went and thought, okay, this is the final turn, big tournament. I've made it all the way to the final, and I sort of looked at the board and I thought to myself, and I hadn't realised I'd said this out loud. I looked up and I was like, how do I not lose this game? And everyone just laughs. But fortunately, Jake, who I was playing, was very good sported about it. And I think he understood, we both kind of had a long day, and he understood kind of the context of where that was coming from. He played a very good game. So, sorry, that's a bit of a long-winded answer to your question. How to beat Dishonor decks. Just be very, very conscious of the honor, and whenever you see a yurt, obviously take the honor as well. That's always very good.
Yeah, I guess the yurts are definitely one way that I find against Unicorn, if you are playing Dishonor, that you just get that refuel so that you don't get punished really for drawing a few more cards or spending your cards each turn.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of how I view them. Is okay, each yurt I get to use it's 2 more cards that I get to draw, which is good. Yeah.
To potentially buy another character, you might want to see. I think it's quite a flexible card, and like you've said, it seems like in an aggressive deck, it kind of just does offer that buffer against what I'd consider probably one of the harder matchups for the deck. Was there any other decks you were worried about running into on the day?
I'm not sure if there are any matchups specifically I was worried about. Possibly Crab, because I know if Crab can turtle up and get a Karada district down and keep stealing my attachments, then I know that can be a very tough matchup. And you never know what's going to come out of left field. Someone's put some kind of janky deck together playing pacifism or some kind of crazy expensive attachment that I don't have an answer to, then that could be quite bad as well. Pit Trap, yeah. I saw no Pit Traps. I didn't play against Crab, and I don't know anyone who's crazy enough to splash for Pit Trap, but fortunately I avoided that. Might have been quite bad. Actually, how does that work? Is it they can't be assigned to more conflicts or something. I can't remember. I don't think I've ever seen that card played.
Yeah, I think it costs 3 fate. You play it on an attacking character, and then they can't unbow in the next ready phase of the regroup phase. The funny thing is that your deck would actually be pretty good counter to it because you have Shintomi encampment and against the waves, so you'd be fine.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it was mostly the core game plan. So I guess the idea with the deck was that I would be the one who was setting out how the game was going to be played and kind of the tempo of the game, I guess, for lack of a better word, and then also posing my opponent the questions to say, okay, can you stop me breaking all of these provinces, and being less concerned with what they might throw back against me, and yeah, that was pretty much the same game plan against everything.
And how did you find appealing to the fortunes performed on the day? I know there's 2 camps of players who are switching to that really strong aggressive province, and those that are sticking with Shameful Display to kind of address the Scorpion and Crane matchups. Did you feel like it pulled its weight?
It definitely pulled its weight in the tournament, and it was definitely a good move. I think having another province that I didn't want to defend or that could just kind of end badly for my opponent if they ran into it was very strong. Obviously, if you're committing a lot of characters to attack, then you don't necessarily want to defend. So having a body for Shameful Display, for example, isn't necessarily ideal all of the time, though it is very good with Talisman of the Sun. And it was just a lot of the times just being able to go on the attack was better. And the way the Stronghold works as well is, so long as you've activated it, then you always get the final conflict. So even if you're going first and you've had 2 conflicts already and your opponent is breaking it on their second, then you still get to attack with that character. I think one game as well, it broke and I got a Keeper Initiate off it. I hadn't been able to win the firing that turn. I just had a Keeper Initiate in my province row, and that was enough I was able to then attack water on my next attack with the Keeper Initiate to give me just another body to attack with, to ready the I can't remember, it's probably a Miname Kazi regulars to then go and break another province. So you don't always have to get kind of the massive 5-coster out. Sometimes just a cheap 1/1 for free is all you need to start the next conflict.
Yeah, Keeper's a good man. Like I'm a crab player, so Keepers are like tier 1 in my book.
And crab Keepers are absolutely fantastic. I mean, you defend with them, they're 2/2. You just sack them to Witch Hunters and then stand stuff. They're amazing there, yeah.
I'm a value hound, so like it's obviously you need Cooney Lab as well to make them 3/3s on defense, and you're just asking your opponent some impossible questions to boost. It's really good. I guess just looking slightly.
Yeah, see that's the deck that I don't want to play against with this. That 3 keepers and your Cooney Lab and defending with that against this. That sounds awful.
I will defend that wall pretty hard if Unicorn comes up against it. But it's just great to see Unicorn succeed, I guess, on a quite a competitive level. It's nice to see, I guess, over the past 2 weekends, the variety of decks that have been winning Elemental Championships, and just kind of how the new restricted list has kind of allowed and opened up a lot of deck lists to kind of shine. And it's just great to hear that you've built this deck and refined it over the past month, and especially having a more aggressive playstyle, because I feel like for a long time this game didn't really have a deck that you could call aggro but also consider quite competitive. The HMT Lion deck kind of had a brief moment in the sunshine, but this Unicorn deck seems a lot more consistent. So hopefully moving forward we see more of it. Is there any cards that you can see in the future that you're hoping to chuck into the deck?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, it's good to see Unicorn putting up a result, and yeah, good variety of decks. New cards. The obvious one is Kamiko in. I think she's in Children of the Empire. That's gonna be really good, I expect. So I think when one of your provinces is broken, she can honor herself and ready. So that's gonna be pretty good. And then. I think in the Unicorn pack there's there's the Gaijin sword, which is kind of like a fine katana, but 3 when attacking. I suspect that would go in this deck as well.
Yeah, that seems quite good.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and like I say, congratulations once again. And hopefully we see Unicorn posting more results like yours moving forward, and we hope to hear from you soon at more tournaments coming up.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, and yeah, thanks, and yeah, likewise. Hopefully, Unicorn's day in the sun is yet to come, and things definitely look positive in the future.
No worries. Thanks, Chris, and to all the listeners, keep chasing the sun.
Yeah.
Well, that was a fantastic interview, Glenn. I have to say that your skills are going to be needed elsewhere as well. I think we could be our roving one-on-one maestro for the next few months, and let's get a few extra of those interviews out. It'd be good to see as we start to see a variety of people, variety of clans and other decks and players that we haven't necessarily heard from in the public, that haven't had their time to shine in the public spotlight, as it were. It'd be good for you to start covering a little bit more of that. So thanks for that, Glenn.
You reckon we can get Glenn stuck out there in like a Afghanistan war zone or something in the middle of a firefight, interviewing on L5R?
Foreign
Do
correspondent.
you see there's some people in Delhi? Like maybe we can just go there next week. We can just get our 3 listeners from Delhi.
Yeah.
I'd actually
Start a
I'd actually be really
GoFundMe.
interested.
Yeah.
I'd actually be really curious to
Start
hear
a
from those
GoFundMe for
listeners
Glenn.
in Delhi as to what their meta's like. It'd be really fascinating, I think. Isolated metas are always the most interesting thing. Could see some really fascinating decks, I reckon.
For sure, and I think today, just before the recording of this podcast, speaking of isolated metas, Australia has been known as the most isolated. Well, it is the most isolated continent in this world, the globe. Although apparently we're not a globe, according to the flat earthers that have popped up in our country recently. But if you're not a flat earther, Australia is quite isolated, and we just saw the 5th hot pick champion be crowned. Bert, what a game!
Yeah, it was quite a long, drawn-out battle where both players had, opportunities to lunge for the win. It was Phoenix v Dragon. Our own roller compatriot Merlin took on Graham Hay, aka Monkeys and Pirates, who's also the creator of that cool app, Deck of 5 Rings, on the App Store.
Awesome.
And Graham ended up winning, and it was a very, very close game with a lot of swings, and the enigmatic magistrate actually played a pretty significant role. So shout out to Brad Andres for designing your favorite card, because it was used to win a title down under, which is
There was a
pretty
little
crazy.
bit of a Sumiko there as well, wasn't there?
Who?
Sumiko. Sumiko.
I have erased her from my brain after Anil put it in me with her in our final many moons ago now.
Oh, that was the Discord League, yeah.
Have you ever seen Enigmatic Magistrate? I don't think I've ever seen it played, period, let alone
Tune in to the Discord
competitively,
League,
let
mate.
alone do
Tune
it
in,
well.
because it was
There's a guy
used to
in
great
Melbourne who
effect
plays
in that
it.
game.
Like,
No.
is the deck built around it?
No, it was just like it happened to be very strong. Like Merlin had 2 4-drops that weren't counting skill against it.
Yeah, okay. Brutal. What are you
Yeah,
going to do?
it was
Magistrates.
quite the intense game. So we've got that's the end of season 5, and it was great to see that there was still quite a I think that we had almost 30 folk participating this season, and it was
I think it was 34, yeah.
34, and it was a bit of a weird season because it was over the it was kind of started a long time ago, and then it kind of there was a few drops, and it kind of extended into the sort of Christmas break. So with Children of the Empire coming out, I think we're gonna stage the next one. I think once Jigaku has a coat loaded into it, I think that's going to be the appropriate time for the next one to be announced. Have you got any sneak previews of anything, that any potential twists and turns that there might be there for the sixth Australian Discord League Championships?
I think just watch this space, but it will be. We'll start it when Coat is released because we want a new meta. I think players want it too, so everyone can salivate until then. But just keep your eyes and ears to the ground.
Absolutely. Yes, I mean, look, it was a fantastic tournament. We did get to cast a bunch of games, and we're going to start casting a little bit more. Toreadory today, Bert, I noticed that you've taken our Hidden City Roller Twitch channel live. How was that to be there when it became a thing?
You know what? It's always great to be on a maiden voyage. There are a few people in the chat who were pretending to be brand new players to the game. One was called Glen Loves L5R, so shout out to you, Marwin. I'm pretty sure it was Marwin.
No, it wasn't Marwin, was it? Oh my god.
But people were having fun. Luke Bitmetal wanted to throw bits at us, but we don't have that set up yet, so he wanted to chuck pennies in our face, but hopefully we'll have that soon.
We're leaving pennies on the table, man. We gotta get that. We gotta get that Twitch money happening. That money train.
The $3.99 a month from one subscriber.
Yep, 2 months, get that new Lambo. She'll be right.
Is it the 3-month subscription that gives you access to that Bert deck we're talking about? Patreon access?
Actually, you know what? There we go. There's some deluxe locked content. Is if you want to know how the Hantei Toreadory-Jiai deck works. No, anyway,
dude, I won't even sell out. It's against my moral principles to spread that crap.
Can I just say that Star Wars Destiny, all they do is they lock all the content creators lock all their content behind Patreon. So if you actually want to get good at the game, they lock it behind Patreon. It's hilarious. Are you fucking serious? New players always ask me, like, how do you get better at this game? It's like, just roll better, man. Like, don't worry about the rest of it, just roll better. They're like, oh yeah, it's a dice game, I remember. I'm like, yeah, don't pay money for that. So I always am reminded of how good the L5R community is, because we all want to just share our love for the game in however we want to do it.
I did.
Which is great.
I agree. I did dive into Hearthstone for the first sort of year and a half when it came out, and I did see people offering $200 an hour lessons. I didn't take them up on it, but I always wonder what you get for $200 an hour for Hearthstone.
Well, depends how good your flipping technique is, mate. Like, you can't just go.
Tips on how Ragnaros the Fire Lord can hit face.
If you press AB, like the old Pokemon, it's just AB, you catch it better.
Dude, I am fucking shocked that they put content behind paywall for like a tiny I guess it's a CCG. That's a joke.
What I don't mind is that I don't mind when people put in a lot of effort for things. If you give away like a bunch of your stuff, that's super cool. But if you've put in like hours and hours or days and days of work on some of these amazing videos, I get it. Like content creators, I get it. It's cool, and it's something. If people are passionate about it and they spend 40 hours making a video, and they want $5, good on them.
Yeah, I'm just saying for the L5R community, thanks to everyone for being a cool free community. Keep it up.
I don't deride anyone for trying to make a buck, but also like by the same token,
no, it's like Imperial Advisor's been really good, right? Like I feel like their articles are very, very great for everyone involved in the game.
So, absolutely agreed. So I think this app. That Graham puts out. If any of you haven't tried it, it's called A Deck of Five Rings. He's updated it at some point in the last 6 months. I haven't looked at it for a while, but I downloaded it today. It's really, really fantastic. Because what it does, it has like the restricted list, it has like a structure so you can see the timing. So if you've got any new players, just tell them it's free. If you've got any new players, tell them to download a deck of 5 things, and it's got like here's all the phases, here's the timing windows, here's your restricted list. And the cool thing as well is you can very easily search and look up cards, and then when you look up the card, it's got a picture of the card, and it has all of the rulings updated, so you can just very, very quickly look up the rulings. So instead of having to go to the various sites and scroll through things, which can be really difficult on your mobile phone, really easy on a laptop, but you can just open this app up, and super good. And I'd highly recommend, if you're going to be a judge at a tournament, it's a handy tool to have as well.
Plus, it's got spoilers, which is sick.
Yeah,
Everybody loves
assumed that
spoilers.
was like common knowledge. Like we've been using that since the get-go, like almost since the start of the game. Over here, it's been like everyone's got it on their table just about every competitive event. It's really handy and really good, especially for newer people who maybe don't commit all their time to playing the game and knocking out the card rulings and all the bits of errata and stuff. Yeah, highly recommend.
So anyone
I think
else
it's going to get better, right?
Yeah. So I think there's been a few new podcasts that have started to surface. Have you guys heard of that Meek Informant podcast?
Yeah, I gave that a listen. It was super good. I rate it. Everyone should get in.
Give us the sell, Butters.
Well, the Making Format, I think there are a series of players who have not been playing in an especially long time. I think between 3 and 9 months each. 3 or 4 of them. But they have decided that the game is great, like we all have. But they've said, well, look, it's actually, it's fairly daunting, I think, for newer players, was probably the thought process. And they've put this podcast together to help or emphasize assisting newer players. So they talk about like their experiences as relatively new players to the game, and they've gone through and mentioned a lot of the key resources and things that people use, explain some of the phases and how the game works and why the game is good. They mentioned Jigoku, obviously, is a super important resource if you're trying to get competitive at the game and learn how to play it. The first episode, they've only done one so far, it was really good, I really enjoyed it. But they predominantly went through and just sort of explained why they play the game, why they think it's great. I think one of them played Netrunner and thought nothing had ever replaced that game, and then they changed their mind when they found L5R after Netrunner took a bit of a nosedive. But look, no, I rate it really high. It's got the makings of a really good cast. As I said, they're only 1 episode in at the moment, but I enjoyed it, and I highly recommend, particularly if you know anyone new that's looking to get into the game. I think
Pretty sure for our
it's a good
first
place to
episode,
start.
it was just us breathing into mics really heavily and a bunch of like errant sounds and robot voices.
Hey, look, that was
Not
only a
everyone
couple
can
of episodes
maintain
ago.
that quality. I think that took a lot of pre and post production effort to get those sound effects in place. And that, given the quality of our casting, I think trying to downgrade it to sound lo-fi and give it that vibe, I think people underestimate the effort that went into it.
Yeah, we've been working with Weta Studios just to really get that lo-fi just perfect, that lo-fi feel.
I mean, it was
Guys,
because-
lo-fi is more of a branding thing. We're not actually lo-fi, right? We got
Well-
high-tech shit, right?
Well, all the guys in our marketing department, they all insisted that the lo-fi brand was really important. So
Aren't you guys using tin
gotta
cans
put
as
it out
string
there
right now?
sometimes.
Like, I thought that's what we're all using.
That's just you. So
Did you get my smoke? Did you get my smoke signals just a few minutes ago?
semaphores, we're just using flags like they do on like aircraft runways. So I think we also do have some people that actually listen to us. I'm sorry if you do, but if you've made it this far, we will reward you by answering some of your questions.
We've scaled back listener questions to once a month, so that means we've got 4 times the questions. Not really. We've got a few questions from a few avid listeners this week. We've kind of covered a few this cast, so we kind of read what the listeners were asking for anyways, which is good because we're meeting what our audience wants, guys. So keep that up. So the first question was really a question about, is Hantei busted or unplayable, and why is there no in between? I think the question is more referring to why are players in L5R so quick to either say a card is playable or unplayable, and why is there no middle room in this game currently?
because we're basement dwelling nerds, and that's our right to be bold and make stupid claims. That's what we do. I mean, why are you playing this game, Glenn? You're not playing it to make friends, surely.
It's like just cries in my basement. It's like, I thought it was
It's
a really
to hide our
fair question
insecurity.
to ask.
I think it's to hide our insecurity.
Is
Yeah,
why
look,
it's like
I
I
think so.
win to like not be insecure. That's my motto moving forward. Win secure.
I think this question's a good question though, because a card like this, its effects are so strong, but it's such a heavy investment, and there's such a huge drawback that it does feel like in some games it's going to win you the game, in other games it's going to do nothing and lose you the game. And so it's a bit more of an all or nothing sort of card than, a Fate Worse Than Death, where you can just play it in any clan and do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I feel like Hantei, when you play him, he will either dominate the game or he'll be irrelevant. There won't ever be, he'll have a bit of an impact. He'll either get sorted out pretty quick or played around, or he'll just crush you and you won't feel like you can do anything.
Okay.
So I think
Which I think's fine for a 6-drop. Like, that's
Can I
all
just
right.
say though, I just think it's exciting that I just want to cast him. It's sort of like Bayushi Whisperers. I just literally wanted to play the card. Like there's no I didn't care about winning. I just wanted to play the card and use the action. And if I couldn't do that, that was a negative play experience. If I think,
but he's just a cool character, right?
It's awesome.
Like it's the emperor. It's the damn emperor. Like it's his August Personage. It's the man who's in control of Rokugan. You know, like he's supposed to be divine. Like he's channeling a kami. Come on, direct descendant of Hantei.
do you reckon I know? I reckon I know who will love this card. By the
Of
way,
Hantei,
I think is it Lord Shoju on Jugoku.
Oh my god!
Like
I want to play Lord Shoju on Jugoku. Drop this card and just read his text.
I think that'd be like the best alpha. Any new player, you just need to direct them to Jugoku and let them play Lord Shoju. You'll honestly have like the best experience of this card game, I feel.
That's peak 5R playing against Lord Shoju. It's like PPE, positive play experience.
So another listener asked us, when will Seal of the Lion start to see play? This is a really interesting question, and I think rather than discussing it here, we're actually going to have a video coming out quite soon that will address this question. I've been working on it for a little while, and so
This question was submitted by you.
not at all.
This is what I prepared earlier.
Someone else wants to know if this seal is
You
playable.
missed the turkey.
The answer realistically is probably when there's more commanders and cards that work off commanders. But currently, if you tune in next week, there should be some content that will appeal to Seal of the Lion players.
Sweet content.
So there's another question about when does jank become not jank, and I think that ties into that first question we discussed. What changes a deck from meme status to something that wins a tournament? It feels like, for instance, the whole like you just pass the dynasty phase. That's a bit of jank for a little bit. But then all of a sudden it's the most oppressive deck that you can bring to a tournament for a while. What do you think that's transition point?
That is interesting. I still remember the very first time when we had some rollers over at my place. We were sitting down to play, and I was playing against Bert, and this is very, very, very early on in the piece there. And it was dynasty phase, turn 1, no board, and I was going first, and I said pass. And I still remember him just bursting into tears of laughter, just like what the hell are you doing? And it is one of those things where you do tend to see especially. That's why experimental players and innovative players tend to cop a lot of flack if they're not just making sure they're converging on groupthink play. So moving from jank to groupthink, I think it requires more than just a tournament victory. If it's just like one dude who brings deck, who doesn't have rep, doesn't have a reputation, then it's very hard for that deck to gain community acceptance. Like if you look at Game of Thrones, there was a guy called Bruno, and he would always bring weird shit to tournaments, and he would win with it. But because he had that reputation, then whatever weird shit he brought to the tournament would become the meta for the next few months. So at the moment we've got a few sort of all-star players that can do that, but they tend to bring exactly the same deck to every single tournament, so we don't really see like new trendsetters. So I think sometimes it just takes lots and lots of wins in the local scene, and that starts to bubble up to multiple tournament wins. It's more than just one person winning one tournament.
I think that the card pool being shallow up until this point has something to do with it, and there's more room for innovation going forward because these hidden sort of archetypes will bubble to the surface. The best example I can think of this is Consumed by Five Fires, which started out as unplayable trash, and then there was a niche application because the meta was tending towards these heavily overfading characters to deal with the prevalence of fate worse than death. And then all of a sudden, this card became a massive weapon in the environment. And so I think one way that jank can become not jank is just by a tiny shift in the metagame, and then some card that was seen to be unplayable becomes a very, very powerful tool. So I think that's one way it happens.
Do you think the community at large embraces the innovation, and do you think they're accepting of these sort of off-meta decks?
Yeah. I think the community at large are, but I think in terms of if you looked at an average set of players and you talk to them, they'd be like, that sounds like a really cool idea. I want to try it out. But I'm not sure that there's a difference between that sounds cool, I want to try it out, versus that sounds like a tier 1 ultra competitive no life for deck that I will play.
That's why I think you guys like Mosey are super important, because they're a crossover between the banana and the sublime. And so you want guys like him because he's a hyper-competitive guy who's also not willing to innovate. And I think Fro also does it as well. I think those are the two that come to my head as leaders.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think we've got time for about one more question.
We had someone ask us about if somebody wished to build a neutral deck, whether it be Imperial or Mantis, which clan would be the best base to build on top of, including stronghold usage and as fewer cards as possible from that clan.
I think new unicorn, hands down for me. So the third unicorn box,
Ben?
Absolutely be it. Doesn't require unicorn at all.
Actually, I have to agree. I think that the new unicorn box is going to present some really interesting options. The mass generation of fate required to make these guys work, I think is going to help. But I will also say that I think Satoshi helps any Imperial deck, so it's just got to be able to generate a truckload of fate.
Well, I think
Crab's pretty good for it too, because you've got innate saves, and Cooney Labs, which works with all of your characters, including neutrals, stuff like that.
Well, Unicorn, though, have also got the Meishodo rebates. Whatever her name is, the covert
Shahai, the Dark Daughter.
Yeah. So,
and you can play Gaijin Customs.
Gaijin Customs as well, yep. Yeah. So the Unicorn have got that whole...
I think Unicorn will be the pick, for sure.
Something me and Butters was talking about earlier was that you can run the favourable mount, and you can attach it to a neutral character, and then you can both use Gaijin Customs and use Shintomi Encampment on them because they're now a cavalry unit. Whereas if you use the seal of the unicorn, you then can't use Gaijin Customs. It was just an interesting point to note with that.
That's actually really true. I mean, the favoured mount costs a fate though, doesn't it? But it's got an action though. You can bring the character. Yeah, it's got a legit action.
I think favoured mount is overall pretty underrated card. I think it's really strong.
Yeah, I do too.
I think the more magistrates you see in the game that are super usable, I think the more of that sort of card you'll see, because if you can throw an oppressive magistrate, what's the new one?
Humble.
One that shuts off 4 and 5 costers. If you can have that offensively, bout or otherwise, the humble magistrate. Thanks, Glen. But if you can have that in both your offensive conflicts in a turn, that's really significant.
I just love the idea of judges on horses. just making rulings, just wherever they go.
I feel like if I was a judge, I'd want to be on a horse.
Mobile
wherever-
rulings is fantastic.
Also, the idea of having like Unicorn be the clan that's telling everybody what to do is just fucking hilarious.
The legislators,
But
the
there was
Gaijin
one last surprise
legislators.
question for you from Travis. He made a custom card for you.
Okay, here we go.
It's a 3-cost conflict Shugenja character with 2 stats and 1 glory. What do you think the ability is? Yep. Scorpion
What
Clan.
do I think the ability is?
Name starts with Yogo.
Ooh.
So the custom
I don't know,
card
man, you
says
tell me.
action.
It's a
When
it's
your
a
opponent would
custom
play a
card.
spell in a conflict, put this character into play from your head and cancel the effects of the spell. What do you think about that card?
I reckon that fucking card should be banned, bro.
Thank you, Travis, for the.
You know what? It's a silver bullet. No one would play it, right? Like, only idiots would play it, especially if their mates were trying to test the new cards.
He's still
and
salty.
spells.
Yeah, I feel like she's called Yogo Scoop because
Dude,
that's what
I'll
happens
never
when you
forget.
play
I'll
her.
never forget.
Lest we forget. Yeah. All right.
It's an auto win. Overpowered.
On that note, everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you've made it this far, you are truly. I'm really not sure what you are, but thank you anyway.
You're tenacious, if nothing else.
Tenacious. We praise you. Remember to download a deck of 5 things. Check out twitch.tv/Hidden City Rollers, where you'll be able to see the replay of the Hot Pink Championship number 5, where we see Graham take down Merlin. And we will see you next week. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Yeah.